Yo, Entrepreneur DNA, we are back with another incredible episode and an incredible guest. This man has retired twice by the time he was 39. He is the CEO of Money Ripples, and he's the anti-financial advisor. Chris Miles, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's up, Justin? So cool to be here with you.
Yeah, this is going to be good stuff, dude. You and I have gone back and forth about money and how it works and real estate and passive income and this was a no-brainer to have you on this episode of Entrepreneur DNA. So I'm excited for you to be here, dude.
Yeah, same here, man.
So you retired twice by the time you were 39. I think most people on the planet are trying to just retire. So talk a little bit about like the fact that you retired, said, well, I got to get back in the game because I'm bored or whatever the case was, then did it again, and then retired again. Give us that journey. I think most people are just like, I just want to try to retire around 65 years old. I think most people are that way.
Yeah. Well, definitely retiring twice before you're 40 sounds pretty impressive. The only reason it had to be twice is because I screwed up the first time. And so let me take it back. Like, I wasn't raised around a lot of money. I was raised by pretty hardworking middle-class parents. Even my mom was an artist. She was trained by the same master painter that trained Bob Ross, that paints his happy little clouds and trees and stuff, and
Bob Ross, we're both old enough. We all know Bob Ross, legend.
We all know Bob Ross, right? Yeah. And so I grew up in that environment, watching that stuff on PBS and whatnot. And my dad, he was a hardworking guy in the automotive industry. He was always about telling me like, hey, your word is your bond. My mom was telling me, follow your passions, your heart. And so naturally I became a right brain, left brain confused kid. But the one thing when it came to money is that the one thing they had in common is that we never had enough of it, right? We can't afford this. What do you think I am, made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees, those kind of things I'd hear growing up. And I vowed I never wanted to be that way. And so when I went to college, I was the first one in my family to do so. And as I did that, I said, I can see pretty quickly that if I just follow this path, I'm not going to become free, because I wanted to control my time, my destiny, my own freedom, my own everything. And I knew that path was to be an entrepreneur. And so I actually dropped out of college with one class to go before I got my bachelor's. And it was supposed to be temporary. I figured I'd just get some business experience and then go back and get my MBA, right?
Sure.
Well, as I dropped out, and I'm like taking this little hiatus that was supposed to be temporary, I was trying to find some business. I wasn't sure what it was. And finally I had a friend that he told me, he says, hey, Chris, you know what? Like I've got, I just got hired with this financial firm. It's pretty cool. And I don't know what it was. Maybe I was like Adam Sandler in The Wedding Singer or something, where it's like, I like money, when he goes in the bank for that job, he's like, I like money. I have a jar on top of my fridge. I'd like to add more to it. That's where you come in. I was kind of the same way, although I was smart, I just really wasn't trained much in money. But good news is, if you want to be a financial advisor, it doesn't require anything. All you have to do is not be a criminal and pass a test with 70%, and you're in. So it's a pretty low barrier.
That is insane. I want to stop you there, bro, because I didn't know that. That is wild that the vast majority of Americans rely on financial advisors. Mm-hmm. And what you just said is essentially what can get you licensed to be a financial advisor who is in large part responsible for advising people on how to use their money and what the best investments are, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think it's way harder to become a realtor than it is to become a financial advisor. Even with multiple licenses as an advisor, it's not that tough. I mean, some people can pass those tests in a matter of a couple of weeks and they're done, So you're right.
So people really need to do you have a word? I don't mean to cut your story out, but do you have a word for those people who are like, they're heavily reliant on financial advisors? Because listen, I my story, and it's not about me, it's about you, but that is insane that someone who can go pass a test, just not have essentially a felony, but then could advise people on what to do with $250,000, $1 million, or whatever it may be. Like, what's your advice to those people looking at financial advisors?
I think business owners, we get it, right? Like, we know that if we want to follow anybody, it's somebody who's been there, done that, and still doing it today. Mm-hmm. And when you look at financial advisors, I mean, and really this is what I kind of realized, right? Because, this kind of goes along with my story, because several years later, my dad asked me to look at his finances. He's like, become my financial advisor. Well, I looked at all his numbers, and my dad was like the ultra penny pinching saver. I mean, he made Dave Ramsey look like he was a spender, right? I mean, that's the kind of guy my dad was. He wasn't the guy that wouldn't just not tip at a restaurant. He'd be the guy, if he got bad service, he would steal from the restaurant just because they owed him something.
There you go.
So anyways, I'm sitting down with him, and he paid off all of his debt, including his house, in just 18 years. He'd stuffed money in his 401k for decades. So he was like the ultra saver, like the model poster child of what I was teaching.
Yeah.
And as I sat down with him, he says, Chris, what can I do? And I said, well, Dad, you're 61 years old right now. If you want to retire today, you better hope you die in 5 years, because that's how long your money is going to last before you run out. He's like, all right, well, what do I do? What else can I do? I said, I don't know. You did everything right. And I don't want to just sell you something in the stock market because you're my dad. I don't want to just throw you into something just because I make a commission. And then all of a sudden the market tanks, which, by the way, this is the end of 2005. It's good I didn't just throw them in something in the stock market, because
that's right.
2007 and 8 and 9 crashed, right? So anyways, this bugged me. And that's where it led me to this next place, because this is the question you should be asking financial advisors. Because just a few weeks later, as I'm kind of questioning, almost having this business existential crisis, right?
Sure.
I'm questioning whether I'm teaching even works. Well, of course, a few weeks later, I'm talking with a friend that I trained to be a financial advisor, but then he went to go do real estate investing. And he asked me, we got in this debate, what's better, stocks or real estate, right? Because I was even trading stocks and options and doing stuff. And he's like, Chris, stop. How many of your clients are actually financially free where they don't worry about money? I'm like, well, don't worry about money? Well, I'm like, all of my clients worry about running out of money at some point. So I would say none. And he said, awesome. Way to go. Well, how about this, Chris? How many of you guys as financial advisors, and this is the key question, how many of you guys as financial advisors can actually retire off of these investments, not off the commissions you're earning, but doing these investments? And as I was really honest with myself, and there's over 100 people in my office, I said, I don't know, there's guys who've been working here since the late 1970s. I would probably say none. None of them.
Meaning they actually didn't do the advice that they were given. They were not investing.
It just wasn't enough, right? Because the mutual funds really don't return a high enough return to make anything. Yeah. So all these financial advisors, they were really more relying upon the business. And this is the key thing. If there's anything a financial advisor does right, it's they have a business. That is the best investment a financial advisor has. Unfortunately, if you're the entrepreneur listening to financial advisors, the best business you would have, or best investment, would be to invest in their businesses, right? Because they get paid based on your money sitting there, assets under management, as they call it, right? And they get paid whether you make money or not. They get paid a percentage or commission of that, or a fee-based, something like that. But even if you don't make money, they still get paid. They are the one person that gets paid, even if you don't. That, to me, I mean, any other business for that matter is crap. And even if you look at if you look at the statistics, right? For example, Fidelity. People talk about 401ks. If you're a business owner and you're putting money in a 401k and paying your own match, that's crap. Because the truth is, 401ks suck, okay? They're horrible. Not to mention you're locking your money up in prison, and you'd be much better putting your money in your own business versus throwing it in somebody else's companies that, again, you're going to make lackluster performance. But they found out out of Fidelity, who's the largest 401k provider in the U.S. here, Fidelity has 45 million people with 401ks and IRAs. Guess how many have $1 million or more?
You said
810,000.
I'm guessing 4,000.
It's definitely more than 4,000. That's the good news. But out of 45 million, still it's only 810,000. That's like 1.5%. And of those, there was a different study done by Transamerica that's asked, hey, what's your viewpoint on retirement? 35% of those polled that had over $1 million said they think it will, quote, take a miracle to be able to retire. A miracle.
That is,
Think about it.
This is insanity, because this is something that it's funny, because me, I'm a real estate guy. This is what I do. Now, I also believe in what you do, to the point where I do what you do. I don't sell it, but because I think more financially than I think like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a shame to hear the stats that you've been quoting. I'm just like, man, I'm so happy you're here to shine some light on this, because I think the vast majority of entrepreneurs are uneducated on how money really works, and uneducated on what they should be doing when they're making money, right? A lot of these listeners, a lot of these viewers on YouTube and Instagram, they're making money now. Like, shit's going, right?
Yeah.
And so this kind of goes back to your retirement stories, but what the hell do they do when they're actually making some money.
Did you know that you can unlock retirement account and old 401ks and invest them into whatever you want? Today's episode is brought to you by the retirement innovators at Horizon Trust Company. If you're looking to break free from the limitations of traditional retirement plans and dive into a world of endless investment possibilities, Horizon Trust is your key to unlocking financial freedom. With a self-directed IRA from Horizon Trust, you're not just saving for retirement, you're actively shaping it. Whether you're passionate about real estate, intrigued by the potential of cryptocurrency, or interested in diversifying with precious metals, Horizon Trust empowers you to invest in what you know and love. Founded by industry titan Greg Herleen, Horizon Trust has over $1 billion in assets. Horizon Trust brings unparalleled expertise to retirement strategy. Their commitment to excellence is why they are a 5-star rated self-directed IRA custodian, trusted by savvy investors nationwide. Experience the future of retirement planning with Horizon Trust's cutting-edge account portal. From detailed investment reporting to real-time alerts and dedicated client support, they provide all the tools you need to invest with confidence and speed. Join the community of forward-thinking investors who have made Horizon Trust America's top choice for self-directed custodianship. Schedule a consultation with the IRA specialist today by visiting horizontrust.com/Justin and discover how to amplify your retirement savings with the power of alternative investments. Don't just plan for retirement, pave the way to a wealthy future with Horizon Trust.
That's what I started to learn too, because like anything in business, right? Like you want to focus on profit, right? Profit is the key, like the lifeblood, not just your business, but that's what really creates freedom in business too. I've found out that really, if you look at the Forbes 500 list, I like to see proof, right? Just like with Fidelity, when you factor in the people that don't think it'll take a miracle to be able to retire, comparatively, that's like 1% success rate. So imagine like you go to your business site, you have a Google review on there, and there's 99 1-star reviews, but you happen to get that 1 5-star review. Would you ever want to go to that place? Would you ever go to that restaurant? If it has 1 5-star review from their mom, the other ones are 99 1-star reviews saying this place sucks. That's basically what financial advising is. And so you gotta realize that just because financial advisors seem smarter, they talk the talk, right? And I'll tell you, I was trained as a financial advisor. They would tell us, hey, you know what? Just get them to trust you. In fact, sometimes you can blow their minds away to the point where they'll say, you know what? It sounds like you know what you're doing. I'll just turn my money over to you. When has that ever worked in business? Whenever you've turned money over to an employee and say, you know what? You just take it all. I don't need any accountability. And a financial advisor is an employee for you. I mean, they're contracted by you. You can fire them. But it's amazing that we've been so brainwashed by financial companies and advisors and gurus out there that tell you, oh no, these guys are like God for you, right? Like you got to listen to them and you better kiss up to them. I can't tell you how many business owners I've talked to that are like, yeah, but if I start investing in like real estate, which is what I now recommend a lot of people do instead, invest in your business first and foremost, then secondly, real estate. I'm like, well, if I do that, like what's my financial advisor going to say? Who gives a crap? You hired them. They're your dang employee. You tell them what to do, not the other way around. And it's like, even if they ask you why, just tell them because I want to. And they can't question that. They got to honor your word because they work for you. Even though they make it seem like they're the authority, you got to listen to them. You don't have to do jack squat of what they teach you because the truth is you're probably more successful than they are anyways.
Man, dude, I would love to have some financial planners like audit their own P&L. Like I would love to have expose honestly, transparently. Like one of the things that, in my world of real estate investing, I always say like, if you're going to hire a mentor or a coach, like audit what they're actually doing. Like, do they have rentals? Are they flipping anything currently if they're going to teach you how to flip? Have they wholesaled anything in the last 30 days? Like audit them. And the same is true in financial industries, right? The things that I do with my money, almost, if I'm being honest, almost 100% of the time, because I'm trying to think, anything I'm doing with my money is typically because someone like you, a friend, says, here's what I'm doing. Here are literally the results. Here is the P&L. Here is the thing, the track record. This is my account. And I say, oh, bro, I'm in. right? Whatever that is. It's not because you are an advisor. It's because I'm looking at the actual results of what you are telling me. Literally, friends, I have a buddy who has no financial license, no nothing. He said, look at what I've done in a sector of business.
Yeah.
Justin, you got to get in, like, showing me results. So I love what you're saying. Like, I would love to see financial advisors show what they've done. And you're right. I bet they're living on their commissions and, they tinker at best.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that successful financial advisors are good salespeople. They're really just salespeople in suits, right? And I'm not saying that they're bad people, because there's a lot of good-hearted guys. In fact, I was just in Nashville.
They chose that profession. People could be good people. Yeah. They just chose a profession that, you're basically saying you got to audit that. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's not about them. Even though they're good people, there's lots of good people in the world, but it's about, do they get you results? And that's what drove me out of the business. That's why in 2006, I said, I can't make this work anymore, especially as I started listening to real estate investors and such, right? I'm like, I realized that if you look at the Forbes 500 list, all the people, the one thing they have in common, they're business owners, aren't they? The richest people in the world are business owners. They're not people that said, man, like they made the cover of Forbes magazine because they saved in their 401k diligently over the last 50 years. Now they're the richest person in a wheelchair in a nursing home. That never happens, because the truth is you can never save your way to wealth. And I learned this firsthand as a financial advisor, even before I left. I remember I was talking with my brother-in-law. Now, my brother-in-law, his dad became a self-made millionaire. The guy was homeless at age 16. He went and got his own Chrysler dealership at age 19, millionaire by age 21. This is in the 1960s, right? I mean, this is no small feat. A millionaire in 1960s is a heck of a lot harder than being a millionaire now. Now you're middle class and you're a millionaire, right?
No doubt.
Well, so this family became self-made millionaires, lots of money. I figured as a financial advisor, if I get in with my brother-in-law, I get in with the rest of the family, I'm set for life.
Yeah.
And so I prepared for days and getting the perfect presentation, got my suit pressed, got everything all queued up, brought even a guy from my office to back me up because, mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established, that kind of thing, right? So I go and I present to my brother-in-law, and he says, all right, Chris, let me get this straight. If I give you 10 grand just to play with today, you're telling me you can give me 12%, right? And I was like, well, there's no guarantees. And the truth is, by the way, the market's never averaged 12% long-term. It's more like 8. Yeah. So I said, well, there's no guarantees. He's like, well, okay, Chris, even if you do give me 12%, that 10,000 made me $1,200 in a year. But Chris, I can take that same 10 grand, and because they're in the automotive industry, like with car, they own dealerships and stuff. He's like, I can take that same 10 grand. I can go buy a big rig, turn around, flip it a couple months later, and make 20 grand in profit. So $1,200 in a year, maybe, versus 20 grand in profit in a couple months. Why would I invest my money with you? And of course, I said the same thing that I bet you guys have heard before too, which is you should be diversified. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket because, business is risky. Ironically, I had a business, right? But I'm like, nah, you should put your money in business because I don't make a commission off of it. That's what I was really saying. And that's the problem right there. Your number one investment should be your business. But I will tell you this, it shouldn't stop there, because what I learned in 2006 was it drove me nuts that there was guys able to be in their 20s and 30s and they'd have to keep working, because you can be a business owner, but you can get caught in your own rat race, right? You can make millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. But if that business were to shut down today, the question is, would you be okay? If we had another crappy 2020 where you're non-essential, all that kind of crap, right? We get that again, what's going to happen? And so that's what I learned in 2006. And so I started meeting with these guys who were real estate investors, and a lot of them were flippers and stuff. But I realized, wait, I can lend my money out to people. So remember, I'm a financial advisor thinking you got to squirrel away your money for decades, and then you live on less than the interest. You're only told to live on 3% of the interest. So even if you're lucky enough to save $1 million in a mutual fund, you're told to only pull out $30,000 a year. That's like poverty line as a millionaire. You're a broke millionaire.
That's where I go, who the hell teaches that? Like, I don't even understand that math. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's because they run the numbers and they're like, well, if the markets go up or down, because if you pull out money when the market goes down, it's like a double whammy against you. You can lose money fast. That's why Dave Ramsey gets ripped on so much. Like, he got ripped on social media because he was telling people, you should be able to pull out 8% a year. So if you make 12% in the market, you can pull out 8%, you'll be fine. You'll never run out of money. Well, the sad thing is, on my podcast just a little while ago, I actually showed what happens if the market goes down just once every 3 years. And guess what? You ran out of money in about 15 years. So based on the average returns of the market, pulling out 8%. So that's where I realized it's about the cash flow, the passive income. And so when I realized I could take my money, lend it out even to investors, I don't even have to be the active investor. Because one mistake that I see some people making in the business world is that they see people on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and they're like, hey, $200 and I made $5 million, from flipping or wholesaling or whatever it might be. And that's cool. Like, it's an awesome thing, but it's a business, right? So if you're a business owner, you don't have systems in place, and you go try to start a new business, you might watch that business, such as your economic cash cow, fail. So you can do that, but just understand you got now two businesses competing for your time. If you do passive investing, which is what I started getting into more eventually after I stopped doing flipping, is that I could lend my money out, for example, and make maybe 1% a month. Yep. Well, that means if I have that same $1 million, instead of pulling out $30,000 a year, I'm pulling out $120,000 a year, right?
Right.
I'm getting a lot more cash with less money. And when I realized, it's not just about the returns, it's about what income can really come my way. What kind of income can I get? That's when it rocked my world.
Yeah. Well, and so what was the pivot, when, obviously you're here now with a business. This is why we have you on the podcast. What brought you back into the space of entrepreneurship, business owner? You've retired twice. You're no longer retired, otherwise you wouldn't be here. What are you doing actively? Like, what brought you back in?
Yeah, so 2006, I got to the point where I had enough passive income I could quit, right? And I was just like, what do I do with my time? Because I was 28 years old at the time. I'm like, what do I do? Because none of my friends can hang out with me in the middle of the day because they're all working too.
That's right.
And I almost started like a dinner dance business. I even almost opened up a ballroom dance studio. One of the weird facts about me, I used to be one of the nation's top amateur ballroom dancers.
Wow.
So
interesting fact.
I was going to do that, but it didn't feel right. I remember almost closing on a building, and at the closing table, I said, "You guys are going to hate me, but I feel like I need to back out of this deal." And then just a few months later, because everybody wanted to know how I did it, right? A few months later, some partners and I got together. We decided to create a company to teach people, hey, let's teach them how to get out of the rat race. So 2007, I came out of retirement, focused all on the mission. I mentioned why I had to retire twice. Notice I came out of retirement in 2007. And at the same time, I had, some real estate happening as well, but I also cut off a lot of my streams of income to do that business. I dropped them because one of the partners said, focus all in. It's our mission, our passion, right? Which is stupid. Why would I cut off my streams of income if I'm teaching people how to create passive income? I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but
you were young. How old were you?
What's that?
How old were you?
I was 30 at that point. Yeah. Or 29 turning 30. Yeah.
Okay. Young enough that you haven't gone through what you just now described, right? Those are all lessons that you can only connect those dots looking back. At the time, you're like, yeah, all in, let's go, burn your boats. But then looking back, you can say, 14 years later, you're like, or whatever, 16 years, you're like, wait a minute, that's not the idea. The idea is have multiple streams of income. Yeah. What was I doing? Those are those lessons.
And it all worked out. I mean, I did go from millionaire to upside down millionaire through the recession. I had to dig out of $1 million plus debt hole. I was actually in the place where I had no savings left, no credit left. My credit score looked like an SAT score if you just got your name right. So it was like in the high 400s. It was horrible. But like you said, it's those lessons you learn, right? I learned about liquidity. As a business owner, you've got to have more liquidity than you probably think you need to have on hand. You've got to have cash sitting there. I learned also have multiple streams of income, not just one source of income for sure. Even in the real estate game, I wasn't focused so much on cash flow anymore because I had so much cash coming in. I was getting sloppy and lazy. I was like, you know what? It's okay if this rental doesn't, positive cash flow anymore because all the appreciation, the market just goes up, right? Like that kind of crap. And, so I got caught with my pants down pretty badly. And, oh, by the way, the new business we started was focused on teaching flippers how to create passive income. So in 2007, all of a sudden, flipping just stopped like a rock. It came to a screeching halt. Our business was going broke. I was going broke personally. It was just like the perfect storm in the crappy George Clooney movie way, right? That's what was happening. But you're right. So here's what happens. Just like everything, you kind of notice a theme in my life as I like to have integrity. I couldn't teach people how to get out of the rat race once I was back in it. And so I stopped teaching that in 2008. And then I started teaching people actually how to get resourceful, how to find money. Because the one thing I always heard business owners say, they're like, yeah, but Chris, it sounds awesome what you're teaching, but I can't even find the money. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, your situation is better than mine. I wouldn't say that verbally because I don't want to scare them off. But I would just tell them like, well, listen, if I can help you find the money, will you pay me? And they said, well, yeah. And so I started like this, like very rudimentary, but eventually started creating a whole system of how do you find and free up cash flow, even especially if you're a business owner, right? Started doing that. And we were almost bankrupt in 2009. And then by 2010, we pulled it out. We were making over $5 million a year. Just because that started to take fire, especially with like chiropractors and dentists, you know, some of those niche markets.
And the practice was essentially what? So if you're talking to a dentist, what are you showing them? What are you telling them to do?
Yeah, at that time, I've now added more stuff to it, but at that time it was just what I was doing, which was how do we find cash, right? So start tracking your money, doing things like that. What are creative ways to pay off debt? That's not just like the Dave Ramsey method, like ways that are based on rate of return versus just, in fact, I've seen other guys teach it out there called the cash flow index. That's something I created in 2008 when I was going broke myself, So the cash flow index is like a way to pay off debt faster than just going off of interest rates, right? I started teaching them like ways to save on taxes. We had the CPAs we partnered up with that we would connect them to and attorneys and things like that we a lot of times free up like tens of thousands of dollars a year just in taxes alone, So just all these things to kind of help improve the cash flow situation. I mean, one business owner, I remember he was 62 years old and he had $500,000 sitting in his crappy IRA, right? Like just sitting there. He didn't know what to do with it. And at that time, I wasn't teaching about investing. Now I talk about how you can actually use that money to go, do like real estate investing, but passively, right? But at the time, I wasn't doing that. And so I remember looking at this whole situation, his cash flow, money coming in and what was going out. And I said, hey, listen, if we refinance your mortgage and then use some of this money from your IRA to not just help you refinance because the values came down, so he had put a little extra equity in, but then also pay off these specific loans while leaving these other ones alone. If we do that, we can use $100,000 of your IRA money to free up $4,200 a month or $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
He's like, but Chris, how do I retire? Listen, what's the whole point of retirement, right? You want income, right? Yeah. This gets you freeing up $4,200 a month, like it's income.
Right.
Well, how do I retire? I'm like, oh my gosh, like $50,000 a year from $100,000. That's a 50% rate of return on your money. Does that make sense? No. Finally, it's his wife. By the way, it's almost always the wives that like say, this is common sense. What are you talking about? This is no brainer.
Because it was a one-time $100,000 investment. Yeah. And in perpetuity, he was going to be making $4,200 a month.
Exactly. It didn't matter how many different ways I described it. He was like, I don't get it. Because he was just so locked in by that brainwashing of financial advisors that he could not touch that money. It was only meant to stay there forever. And that was the thing that kept him in bondage. And by the way, his business for 3 years in a row was slowly becoming less profitable and he was burning out. He was hating his business at that point. Even though he had been very profitable before, he started seeing a downward trend. Yeah. So we did that. A month later, he freed up exactly $4,200 a month, just like we said, right? Well, guess what happened? And this is the thing I love about when you improve cash flow, even outside of your business, it creates this other ripple effect too, right? Because what ended up happening is that he started to relax. He wasn't as uptight about money anymore. So naturally, when he started meeting with patients, when they're coming in, potential new patients, he wasn't desperate for money. He wasn't like, please pay me. He was like, hey, here's what I offer. So he relaxed, and naturally, his closing ratios went up. Yep. So he started making, in just a few months, $2,000 to $3,000 more a month in revenue just because he relaxed. So in total, that $100,000, when you think about it, most financial advisors are like, man, if you make 10%, you're doing amazing, right? $10,000 off that $100,000. But instead, like you said, into perpetuity, he's making over like $75,000 a year, $75,000 to $80,000 a year from that $100,000 decision that he made. And that's the one thing his wife said. She's like, listen, honey, it's only $100,000. You still have $400,000 you can invest, and do other stuff with.
Right.
And so that's not even investing the money, right? Which $400,000, you can easily make a 10% return off that in a passive investing world and make another $40,000 a year. So in total, right, he could easily make, over $100,000 a year extra cash flow just from the little bit of money that he had there.
Well, let's even just talk about, I think there's plenty of people watching this, listening to this, credit cards. Credit cards, 19%, 24%, whatever,
Yeah.
And you have 10 grand, 100 grand, name the number. Let's keep it round figures to make it easy. Let's say you have 100 grand worth of credit card debt as a business owner, and you have a way to effectively pay that off. Let's just say you sell some assets, you sell some retirement, stocks, crypto, something, right? Mm-hmm. But then you start to buy back or pay yourself or replace it at the same rate of your credit card. That is where you start to really see the exponential component of compounding, right? I mean, I think a lot of people get short-sighted with like, I don't want to use, to your point, this guy didn't want to use his 100 grand. He didn't see it. Mm-hmm. But if someone has 100 grand in credit card debt and they could take a HELOC at 9%, or they could, let's just say, sell some assets that are just, they've done well over time, you didn't really intend on selling. Well, there's always going to be dip in markets. So pay that off and buy back in at a percentage that is way better than your credit cards. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, I would assume you would be an advocate for people doing things like that.
Yeah, it's always comes back to the cash flow, right? That's the big thing. Cash flow is what creates freedom, because, and it's really dependent upon you as a steward. I teach people there's spenders and there's savers, but the one thing they have in common is they're both in scarcity. Because spenders, they're always they have to always hunt and kill whatever they want to eat, right? But savers, that's the more deceptive one, because everybody honors them, right? Especially the gurus out there, like, oh, cut out that latte and live on rice and beans for the next 50,000 years, right? They tell you all that crap. By the way, isn't it ironic that Dave Ramsey, who created all of his wealth in business and real estate, tells you to buy mutual funds? I mean, what a crock of crap, right? So anyways, a little side rant there. We can talk about Dave Ramsey another time, but but you're right. Like, it's really about you as a steward. A steward is saying, what's the best and highest use of this money in my life right now? That's what a steward does. They can stay in that abundant mindset, not in the scarcity like savers or like spenders, because savers can never save enough. They never pay off their debt fast enough. It's never enough for them. Just like that guy that got caught with $500,000, he couldn't get out of that saver scarcity mentality. He had to move into a steward investor type of mentality, which is to your point, right? That way you're thinking. And so sometimes paying off the credit card can be an awesome rate of return. It could be great. But there's other times that keeping that credit card balance might be okay. I'll give you an example. This popped in my head here, but I had one client that he was down. He had no money, no cash, right? Nothing in checking, nothing in savings. He was depleted. His business was struggling. All he had left was $1,000 on his credit card. That was it. He had already used up some of it. There was $1,000 between his limit and where he was. And I said, all right, here's the deal. You can either decrease expenses, which we were already working on, and you can only decrease them so far. You still have to spend money, right? It's like, we got to increase income. I said, what's one new patient worth in your office? He's like, it makes me usually between $2,500 and $3,000 a year. I was like, perfect. I said, what if you took the $1,000 of your credit card and you went and did it was right near Christmas time. Like, what if you did like a little Christmas party, invited all your patients, encourage them to bring other people from the community, maybe even bring like massage therapists and other people in too, where they can advertise their services and invite their people to come in, and you can advertise your services. Like, what if you use that $1,000? Because obviously if you get one new patient, you make 2.5 times that $1,000. That's a 250% return. He's like, I guess I could, but I'm just so scared because that's all I have. I'm like, do it. Let's try it. He did it. He got 5 new patients. So it wasn't like he had 50 new patients, but 5. Sure. That's worth to him $12,500 from a $1,000 investment. That's awesome, right?
There's no bigger. I tell people the best investment, in my opinion, if you have to make one investment, it's invest in yourself, right? Invest in growing your business. To your point, a little holiday party, $1,000, but he invested in himself, showed a good time, talked to a couple of people, shook some hands, and it brought him 5 people. I mean, it's marketing 101, right? Get exposure. Sure. And as long as the ROI, the ROAS, right? Because I would say that's marketing. If he has a 3 or 5x ROAS like that, I mean, that's insane. He had a way higher ROAS, but then you rinse and repeat. He should be throwing monthly cocktail parties, right? For $1,000 a month to go get 5 more people every single month.
Exactly. Heck, even if it's quarterly, if he didn't want to burn himself out, fine, whatever. But yeah, you're right. Exactly. Like that right there for him was like the best and highest use of that money in that moment, right? Now, I've had people where they've gotten insanely profitable in their business. They're making lots of money. And now they're saying, okay, I can only invest so much money in my business. I'm getting this return, this diminished return if I keep pumping more money in, right? So if I want to max my ROI on my business, I can't throw all my money back in. By the way, you should never do that, especially when you're a mature business. Early on, fine. But once you mature as a business, you need to take some profits home, right? Because that's where I've learned, especially, with 2020 and everything else happening, that's where having those multiple streams of passive income help. That's where you want to have diversification of income streams coming in. So if you get shut down, you're okay. By the way, I can tell you this, as a business owner, this has been true in my life because eventually I did dig out of that $1 million debt hole. It wasn't easy. I had to scrimp and save and work hard to do it. But by the end of 2016, I retired. I was able to retire again the second time. And I took 2 months off, went to California, got bored out of my mind again, and I came back. Because the thing is, I just can't retire, right? I can't. And maybe it's a spiritual thing for me too, because, not just that you get bored, but I could go find a hobby or something. But I really believe that, God's blessed us with a lot of gifts, right? And if I've been blessed with this kind of experience where I was able to get out of the rat race twice, especially after overcoming $1 million debt hole, maybe I have something to offer the world, right? And I believe they have that ripple effect to give people, hence the name of our company, Money Ripples. And that's where I said, you know what am I doing with my life? How am I being a wise steward of not just my money, but even my time and my talents to give back to people and use those God-given talents? And that's kind of why I kept doing the podcast. I have had my podcast now for 10 years for that very reason. It's I love teaching, I love giving back, and I feel like it's almost like a duty that I have. And
what's the podcast? Everyone right now needs to go subscribe to this podcast. What is it?
Yeah, we did years of marketing, and we came up with the name Money Ripples Podcast after our company name. So,
Money Ripples Podcast on Apple, on all the platforms. Make sure you're following Chris Miles for sure. I tend to agree, my friend, is you have a gift. You have a financial mindset that a lot of people don't. They may be great dentists, but they don't know what the hell to do with their money. They may be great lawyers, but they don't know what the hell to do with their money. And, people like you, there need to be good people with the right, the right intention, right? Not just worrying about a commission on a sale, and to really help these people, to be able to help with their financial literacy. To your point, whether it's real estate, whether it's lending, whether it's, insurance policy, there's just so many ways that you don't need to have your typical financial advisor, stocks and bonds, mutual fund type of investment.
You really don't. Yeah. There's so much of a bigger world out there and a better world with there. And like I said, come back to that point, the Forbes 500, right? They're all business owners. But if you look at even millionaires, what do they have in common? A lot of them do have businesses, but even the ones that don't, they've got real assets. They got things like real estate. That's a part of their portfolio. Even if they don't know what they're doing, even accidentally, they create wealth, right? What better place to learn how to get your money to work harder for you so you have to work so freaking hard for it? Because you never ever want to get caught in the entrepreneur rat race where you make millions of dollars and everybody thinks your life is amazing, but in the back of your brain, you're like, if this were all to shut down today, I'd be just as broke as everybody else, right? I would be in my own rat race. I still am. And that's why I think every entrepreneur needs passive income. You need to have that place, not just for freedom, not just for options, but it gets you to a place of power. And when you come from a place of power, you don't need that one customer, that one client. Just like me and my business, Money Ripples, my whole team knows I can shut it down anytime because I don't need it. But because I'm on a mission, they feel a little bit more certain, right? But that power, knowing that I don't need the money, that comes across. And I'll tell you, I've seen so many people when they get to that place, their business explodes because they don't need the money. It's that weird thing is that when you're not that,
it's indifference. When you're not desperate, you can actually make a real change, right? You're doing it for the right reasons.
That's right. Yeah, you don't have that business breath, as I call it, right? Where you're just reeking, you're the person that passes out the cards at all those, networking chamber of commerce events, and you're cutting people up, giving paper cuts because you want those cards passed out. And in fact, you're so desperate, you can give them a stack of cards, like, here, hand them out to somebody else. Like, please, I need business. No, That's a crappy way to live. Like, you come from a place of power and confidence, you'll get more business.
There's no doubt. Everyone, this man knows what he's talking about. I want everyone to be listening to Money Ripples. Follow Chris Miles. Where else can we point everyone to just get in your world and understand more of how you think financially, why things make sense? Where can we point everybody?
Yeah, like you said, the Money Ripples podcast is great, but anything Money Ripples, at Money Ripples on social media, moneyripples.com, great ways to learn.
Final question, what would be your top 3 investment strategies for someone who's running a high-performing, high-revenue, high-income earner? What would be your top 3 that you would obviously you're not doing an audit of everyone's financials, but just a generic answer of like, hey, if someone's making multiple seven figures, they have high income, here's 3 great, investment strategies.
Yeah, I would say this. Again, no investment recommendations and all that kind of stuff. But if I were to say in general categories, one is, like I said, owning real estate. It doesn't have to be in your backyard. I like turnkey rentals where somebody else manages the property for me so it doesn't distract me from my own passions and time that I have in my business. 2 is, I would definitely look at something like other hard assets like maybe gold, silver. I even have ownership in like oil wells and things like that. So commodities, right? So you got real estate, you got commodities, and you can actually have investments in actual like production of oil well, like type of businesses and whatnot. And then the third thing is having cash, having that war chest, right? Like having that cash available. And that's where I use, it's not an investment, but it's a saving strategy, which is called infinite banking, or as we call it, max ROI infinite banking, so that we cut the cost as low as you can go to get the higher returns on your money.
Love that. Everyone, make sure you go to moneyripples.com. Money Ripples Podcast. My friend Chris Miles is here to serve you guys. That is the end of our podcast. We will see you on the next Entrepreneur DNA. Peace.